Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Delhi Bulls Unfiltered podcast. I'm super lucky to be seated alongside the smartest cricketing brains, Andy and Grant Flower. Lots to speak, and I don't even know where to begin. But as a kid, I've grown up watching you guys on the screen as batters and also as coaches as well. What are you more proud of, your batting and cricketing legacy or your coaching legacy?
Go on.
Yeah.
I'm just proud of being associated with Andrew. We're very close.
Yeah.
And we've grown up together playing cricket.
Yeah.
Our father was a great influence. We've always loved cricket, but also playing for our country.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And we're very fortunate to have done that for a long time. And now to be coaching alongside each other at various tournaments. And so it's really enjoyable. And like I said, very fortunate to be in that position.
Yeah, I mean, I've got similar reflections, really. Great time playing together, and playing international cricket for anyone is a huge privilege and an amazing experience. And then I think, certainly as someone who's sort of aging a little now, to still be involved in the sport and mixing with a lot of really talented, exciting, motivated young guys, I think that helps keep me young, and they're lovely environments to be part of.
Yeah. In fact, I like how your names are synonymous with Zimbabwe cricket. The way the entire rise of Zimbabwe cricket was along your names. And as Indian fans, I remember my dad, because I was too young to understand what cricket was back then. But my dad used to always...
No, thank you. We'll take that slight on our age at the moment. That's fine.
But the fact that, Zimbabwe used to do well, and my parents and all, they used to say that this team is the team to watch out for in the next couple of years. So how does that make you feel as someone who's given so much back to Zimbabwe cricket?
Well, part of our motivation, I can't speak for Grant, but but as a general, a huge part of our motivation for Zimbabwe at that time, after being given international status, was actually to do our country proud. Because there were some detractors about us joining the international scene and being given Test and one-day international status. And we felt that we all had to work extremely hard because we didn't have the most talented group in the world, a very small country, a very small playing pool compared to other nations, particularly India. But we felt that we really had to work hard and unite to show people that Zimbabweans could play the game at international level. So that was a huge motivator for us. And then I think the other part of that motivation was we were, as Grant said earlier, we were lucky to play international cricket. That's how we felt. So testing ourselves against the best in the world was a huge privilege as well, individually.
Okay. And was it what was more challenging? Was it playing cricket or managing teams over the years as a coach? What has been more challenging?
Well, Andrew's done a lot more coaching than me. But I think, Andrew's a head coach, I'm just assistant coach, so the pressures are totally different. But from my perspective, I think playing, there was more pressure.
Okay.
But...
Because he takes the bullet every time.
Usually the head coach goes first.
Yeah.
That's true. That is true.
So you have similar emotions? Yeah.
Well, at least head coaches get paid better, so that they do need to take that responsibility.
But I mean, when it comes to, because you've even been a part of the England setup and a lot other teams as well, and a lot of franchise cricket as well. How is it different coaching a franchise team and an international team?
I think the obvious difference is that in an international setup, that you have the time and the space and the continuity with the same group, with a very similar group of people, to develop them in the medium to long term. Okay. So you can work on things like physical fitness, mental and emotional health and well-being, the understanding of the game, perhaps develop their skills. That's a really exciting part, a rewarding part of coaching. And also the ability to unite a team and get them moving in the same direction over a longer period of time. In franchise coaching, you're brought in to get results, of course, as a leader, but you've got to do it really quickly, and you've got to unite that group very quickly. That's a key to franchise coaching. and you don't have the time to develop skill in the same way.
Yeah.
So
But over here, you're already getting those cream of the players, right? The best of the players, the skilled ones. You don't have to nurture them in terms of upskilling them, but it's more of getting them together. Correct?
well, you just don't have time to upskill them much. I mean, so coaching is slightly different. In franchise cricket, you really want to make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You want to make them feel confident.
Yeah.
You want to grow their self-belief
Yeah.
so that when they play in the middle, they feel empowered to make their own decisions,
Yeah.
and they feel strong and backed and supported.
Okay.
In the international scene, when you're working with a team, or like Grant's coaching with Sussex County Cricket Club at the moment, you can do a lot more medium to long-term development with people. So they are similar jobs, but in a lot of ways quite different.
In fact, one thing which most viewers and cricket fans like us are not aware of is how cricket does. Let's say the IPL mega auctions happen. It's a contract towards the player for 3 years, or it's a 5-year contract. With coaching, is it a similar situation? It could be 1 year, 2 year, whatever. Like an international cricket coaching, I'm sure it's a contract for a long term, right? Up to the next ODI World Cup. But in franchise cricket, is it just for one season, and if it's good, they'll continue? Or you get
In coaching terms, so I think the different tournaments and owners approach it differently.
Okay.
In the main, they're quite short-term contracts, often just on a year-by-year basis. But sometimes you do get longer-term contracts that give you a little bit more security.
Yeah.
But in international cricket, definitely more long-term.
Yeah.
So some of those aren't even fixed-term contracts. Some of them are just employment contracts,
Okay.
and are terminated as you might be if you were working as a personal assistant to someone in the office.
Right.
So it depends on the organization and how they structure their employment.
Yeah. This next question could actually jeopardize our work, but then how much of a hindrance is the media team and the sponsor commitments? Like, instead of coaching and something, you've got to let your players go out because there are some sponsor commitments, shoots, and interviews over here.
I think it's just part and parcel.
Yeah.
I think the guys are used to it. I don't think they always like it, because they obviously like their spare time, and
Yeah.
there isn't that much spare time during tournaments, but it's part and parcel, and the players, they get paid well. The coaches get paid well, so, and you need to do it for the sponsors.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I mean, you've got to accept that's part of your pay packet, I think, to fulfill those commitments.
Yeah.
And I think as I've got older, I've embraced the collaboration with the media side of the game more than I did when I was younger, as a younger coach and as a player, actually. And seen that if you look at the cricket industry more holistically, that the media and the players and the coaches and the management teams have to work together and collaborate for the betterment of the game in the round. But there is a challenge there, no doubt. So, for instance, we finished quite late at the ground last night. We came back and we sat together and had a drink together. Win or lose, we tried to do that with Delhi Bulls. And then this morning, Rovman, Tim David, and another player had to go drive up to Dubai.
Yeah.
So they wanted to have the day off, like we're having the day off, but they had this commitment up in Dubai, a shoot they had to do, hour and a half to 2 hour travel, shoot all afternoon, the 2 hour travel back.
Yeah.
And so instead of recuperating, they've got that to do. So there's never a perfect system, and we try to make it work as well as we can.
Yeah. You spoke about win or loss and how we try to deal with it, in the same way. As a coach, because results are expected from you. So how do you tackle that anxiety or pressure of, if you've lost a match, or the jubilation after winning a game?
Yeah, so I'll be interested to hear Grant's perspective on this, because I know, like, personally, when we were playing, we both took failure, or either losses or personal failure, not scoring runs or dropping catches or whatever, quite hard. And that affects your confidence and self-belief and self-esteem. Right. And that's not a good place to be. Right. And the older I've gotten, and hopefully a little bit wiser than I was, in the team context, it's similar. So you do want to try to flatten out the graph a little on the emotional roller coaster of outcomes and results, because we don't want people to only feel happy when they win or only feel content when they win. And I think one of the easiest ways to do that is try to educate people to divorce their performer self, their player and the outcomes, from who they are as a person. Yeah. They're very different things. Okay. And we shouldn't ally the outcomes of a match or your personal performance too closely with your own self-esteem or your own well-being.
Yeah. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really important for a coach to be consistent, win or lose. Yeah. And obviously the players are doing their best, or hopefully they're doing their best. But if they fail, that's part of the game. Yeah. Okay. You obviously want to learn from that, and you want to try and educate. Yeah. But you've got to know, like we are obviously former players, that they're doing their best. They're not trying to fail. Yeah. But you want to be consistent, and you don't want to be overly reactive. Right. Okay. So, but sometimes you need a strong word after a performance, maybe in the change room. Yeah. But generally, I think most coaches these days, they probably leave it for a bit, let the guys settle down, maybe have a chat the next day. Yeah. And then when everyone's a bit less emotional. Yeah. And I think honesty is a huge thing. Yeah. You know, if someone's not doing well, you want to be honest with them as well.
True. So you can improve as well.
Yeah.
But most of the times, based on your both experience, is it a lack of a certain skill aspect, or is it just a pressure situation which is not being handled well enough in most of the cases?
I think it can be a variety of things that contribute to non-performance or lower performance. Sometimes it's a lack of skill or pace or ability to deal with a particular type of challenge that's coming your way. Okay. You know, it might be a spinning track, or you might come up against a bowler that's bowling at 150, and you haven't really trained yourself well enough to get the ball at chest or head high. Yeah. So sometimes it is a skill thing. Okay. Sometimes it's a management of anxiety thing. Sometimes it's game management, like you might try and manage your way around a golf course. You know, people learn how to build innings, for instance. People learn how to instinctively do the right thing through a 6-ball over. Yeah. And manage their over. Right. People, as a competitor, you need to try and sense what the opposition are doing or what they may do. And then also the ability to focus in on your strengths. So it can be a variety of things that get in the way. And I think the better coaches are better at identifying what that might be, and same with the better players.
In terms of your strategy as well, because I can see the coaches board over there. I tried to sneak, but I didn't understand much of it. As a coach, you guys try to target every team and focus on their weaknesses and all, or you just tell your team to focus on your strengths and just play good cricket so you win the game? Is there a specific strategy for each and every player that you play against?
I think it's a combination of things. Okay. I think all coaches and players, they need to know who they're coming up against. You got to know your enemy. Yeah. And if you're lazy with that, you can get found out. Yeah. But most importantly, you want to focus on your strengths. Yeah. Okay. But you want to know the opposition's weaknesses and also their strengths. Okay. So the meetings are preparation, and different coaches, batting or bowling coaches or head coaches, go about it differently. Right. But I think the most important thing is for the players to believe in themselves and know what they're really good at and stick to those fundamentals.
Yeah, how do you guys manage to get, because nowadays, earlier it used to be like 1 or 2 coaches as the management staff or the coaching staff. Nowadays you've got a bowling coach, a batting coach, lots, it's an entire team over there. How challenging is it for a head coach to get everyone on the same page? Or usually that's because at the end of the day, everyone wants to win.
Yeah, so that is the head coach's responsibility. Yeah. And that it's really important to have people unified. But I usually don't I don't emphasize the fact that you need to be on the same page. I quite like the diversity in the group. Okay. And I like diverse opinion. Okay. And I like an environment where it's okay to disagree with one another. Yeah. And you do it respectfully, and you do it with good intent. Yeah. And then you can come up with really good solutions. Okay. I like that sort of debate and openness in a group. and I try to engender that type environment.
Have you two debated on lots of stuff? Of
course.
Regarding approaches, like some examples? And who wins the debate every day?
Well, I would say Andrew wins the most of the time. He's got more experience than me. But yeah, but it's always healthy debate.
Of course.
I'm not sure of any recent examples.
Oh,
Are you, Andrew?
I can think of an example. So during a tournament in January of earlier this year, we were debating power hitting styles.
Okay.
And we had a fundamental difference about sort of power hitting technique for batsmen. I won't go into the details because I'll just embarrass him because he knows he was wrong. So that would be an example. But those debates are good, especially when you're having them with players or other coaches, because then we're all learning together and challenging our beliefs.
And I'm sure a few players would agree with a certain style and a few other players would agree with a certain style. So that also could be adjusted and tweaked accordingly, right?
Yeah, and as Grant said, it's really important to work with players' strengths.
Correct.
Because I think like the old colonial type of coaching,
Okay.
when we were growing up, was identify what someone's not very good at and tell them,
Okay.
and then work on it. That's not necessarily the best way to start a coach-player relationship with someone. Focusing on their strengths, telling them that they could be world-class, if indeed that's close to the truth. Working on those strengths, that establishes a really nice coach-player relationship initially. And then you can start identifying some of the weaker areas where they need to work on so that they are unidentifiable or unexploitable by the opposition.
That's actually a good point you mentioned about the old style where you used to focus on the weaknesses and directly mention like, hey, you need to work on this. And nowadays it's more about making sure the player is in the right mood. Is it because of the star culture lately that you're actually dealing with some big names? Or is it just a shift in approach towards coaching? Because you don't want to offend a star, right? Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think going back to Andrew's original point, when we started coaching or when we were players, the coaches used to tell a lot more, as opposed to sort of asking the player what he thinks as well, and then get a good communication process, as opposed to this is how I used to do it and this is how you should do it. So I think communication is vital, and to get a buy-in from the other player, because so much of coaching is about trust, and if the player doesn't trust you as a coach, then they're not going to come to you for anything, and they're not going to be open to your thoughts.
Okay. Has it ever happened that a player's behavior or approach towards the game was a big challenge, and you had to sit down with him and be like, hey, you know what? Oh, there's someone. I can see that smoke.
I think Andrew's got a very good example.
Of course, we're all human beings, and we all have egos and fallibilities and strengths and weaknesses. So you're going to come across players and coaches
With behavioral issues. Yeah. Challenges.
well with those challenges, and I think as a player I was a bit of a nightmare to work with sometimes. So I certainly can't be too harsh with players that are a bit tricky. And some of the best players, the reason why they're so good is because they are different.
Right.
So I think you have to be quite understanding of some of those players. And as I've got older as a coach, I think I've got better at understanding that and working with them and collaborating.
Okay.
In saying that, from a team perspective, there are some boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. And I think the clearer you are with players about that, the better the team.
Makes sense. In terms of coaching, because I'm sure you guys come up with lots of strategies, but once the players are on the field, there's far too little that you guys can do. But if you see a blatant error or someone who's just not going by a strategy, would you take an opportunity in the middle of an over and just speak up to them? Or would you be like, hey, you know what, let them go ahead with it. After the match, we'll have a chat.
Well, in a T10 game, it's happening too quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe at the end of the over, you can get a message to someone on the boundary and can get that on. But definitely not during an over. You just don't have time. Yeah, and then obviously the longer the format, T20 or a 4-day match, test match, and the communication lines, it's more possible and there's more time to process.
Yeah.
I think the other aspect to that is you want your players, and especially your captain, to feel empowered to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
and they must get that feeling because they have to make decisions constantly. And if they feel that they are being micromanaged or scrutinized or judged harshly all the time, that's not a good place for them to be because they'll be looking over their shoulder before they make any decisions all the time. Yeah. So that empowerment, that trust, as Grant said, I think that's really important.
Yeah. A few players that you've met and learned from them, has it ever happened? A certain player, a certain character or trait that he had, and you felt, hey, this is something new and I would love to coach other players about this.
Well, a really obvious one for me was when I was playing, our very first test match. I mean, one of the easiest ways to learn is to emulate people. It's just to copy people. So in our first test match, it was against India, and Manjrekar was playing, Tendulkar was playing. And I really liked watching Manjrekar's defensive technique. And so that was a really easy thing for me to pretend to be him and copy it. And then from many hours standing behind our bowlers with the gloves on, watching people like Tendulkar play or Lara, you know, watching their balance, watch how late they hit the ball, looking at the way they move and trying to copy. That was really useful, I think, and a very simple way of learning.
As you can see, I can keep on going on and on with these conversations because it's a fanboy learning from the best in the business. Before we end this, one last question. Are you guys a fan of matchups, the concept? Because over the years, I love how you guys have evolved with your thinking cricketing brain. I'm sure you guys grew up watching a lot of Test cricket. You guys played a lot of ODI cricket. And now you're coaching a lot of T20 cricket. How have you evolved? And how have you made sure that your brains also catch up with the new trends of matchups as well?
Well, I'll give a short answer. Andrew obviously deals in a lot more depth in the IPL, etc. But from my point of view, I think it's important to know the matchups.
Yeah.
And like I said before, regarding your preparation and knowing who's good against what, potentially. But at the end of the day, things change on the ground all the time, and it happens very quickly. So you got to trust your instincts, and that's the most important thing. But to have that knowledge is vital as well. And so your analyst and your players and coaches, they need to collaborate well before the game, but to trust your instincts as well.
Wish you all the luck. I'm sure you guys have coached a lot of teams, but RCB is going to be a big challenge as well. I'm really looking forward to fantastic performance from them. Last year, they were really close and that comeback was phenomenal. And that's coming from a Mumbai Indians fan. So wish you all the luck for that. And hope to see you more with Delhi Bulls because you're doing fantastic stuff over here as well. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Kunal.
Delhi Bulls.